The latest are showing some weird things, guys. Marist has got Harris up nationally +5 over Trump. Among independents, they've got Trump up 10 points over Harris. And that's up 6 points for Trump since their last poll. So he gained 6 points with independents, but he's trailing her in the overall by 5. And then 1776 Project's Ryan Gerdusky tweeted out, if you're seeing this and wondering how this can be, it's because the sample size was D+7. D+7 puts her up 5 points over him in the national. That's crazy. Who goes to the poll that has a 7 percentage point favor of the towards Democrats and who they ask? Same thing with this Fox poll that's getting attention today, has her down 2 points in the overall to Trump, but then without providing the crosstabs, they say, however, she's ahead by 6 points among voters from the 7 battlegrounds. What does that mean? It's up 6 points. So she's beating him by 6 points among voters in the 7 battlegrounds without providing any crosstabs or information. But if you dig like into the last one, guess what the margin of error is on that poll? 6.5 percentage points.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
It's totally useless. So what is this? This is garbage. Fox polling is usually better than this. This is disgusting. This is like, it's a lie. So I don't know what to think. I'll give you just 2 more. Quinnipiac Battleground polling that just dropped shows Trump up 7 in Georgia over her. He had been up 5. And in North Carolina, which is a redder state, shows her up 2. Whereas in the September 29th poll, he'd been up 1. So a lot of people are saying online, these polls make no sense. How can North Carolina be more blue than Georgia? What do you guys make of it?
Yeah, I mean, look, a couple of things off the top. First of all, national polling is absolute garbage at this point because their universe is including a whole bunch of coastal people. Their electoral votes have long been since counted, right? So you got to throw out all your national polls and look for these battleground things. Let me just say, just as a jumping off point, and then we can talk about these specific things. Polling gets really jumpy in the month of October. You have every media organization in the country that is polling all of these things. You've got every campaign statewide. You've got the presidentials. You have the super PAC supporting said campaigns. And then you have these like independent pollsters out there doing it. So your average sample that you need to get, what is reflective of a universe of actual voters is penetrated like 17 different times in any given week. And how many people do you know, Megyn, that spend Friday night 35 minutes talking to a random pollster about all their thoughts and dreams as it pertains to the electorate? There's really a small number of people that will actually do that. So when you have that kind of inundation, it makes it increasingly difficult to actually get good numbers out of it. And that's why you see October stuff start jumping around. I mean, in the industry, the way that I prefer to do it, if you're trying to make a decision in terms of messaging or something else, is something we call tracking, which basically leaves it open where you're constantly polling each and every night because it averages out your 3 or 5 day roll. So if you get a real bad night or a real good night, you can see everything kind of averaged out over the middle. Now, of course, media organizations don't do that. It's incredibly expensive to do, but therefore it really doesn't give you an accurate sense of where polls are.
I'll tell you this. I don't know what the polls are telling us, but it does look like both sides this year are taking to early voting. The numbers look big, at least down in Georgia. They had record-breaking early voting. And I realize that the Democrats think this is better for them because it is record-breaking. But I'm just not so sure because Trump switched from only vote on election day to urging his supporters to do it early, do the mail-in voting, do the early voting. And I've heard Charlie Kirk of Turning Point say the same. It's got Georgia and Arizona in particular. Get out and vote early, and that they like what they're seeing so far. So I'm not sure what to believe, but I do think this election is a little unlike the last two where Republicans are less skeptical of the mail-in voting. What do you guys think?
Well, historically, Republicans have been able to win in the early vote.
Yeah, pre-Trump era, it was like our thing. Yeah.
And I really hope that, we make the significant push. I remember 4 years ago when we had to deal with that heartbreak people were like, listen, we're going to use all the tactics that Democrats did of early voting, of ballot harvesting, everything. Now's our time to follow through on that. How bad it felt losing that election, we need to make them feel, the Democrats, when we use that same tactic. We need to swamp the vote. Right now, today is the first day of early voting in North Carolina. Every single person there needs to go cast your vote for Trump. You don't know what's going to happen on election day. You saw natural disasters can come through. It could snow. You don't know what's going to happen on election day. Get that vote in. The Secretary of State shows you online that your vote has been counted. There can be no excuse to lose this election to Kamala Harris. We need to get those votes in for Trump now. Get them in the bag.
Mm-hmm. And there is some good news for Republicans out of the early vote. I mean, there was a data point out of Pennsylvania yesterday that showed the Democrats are turning out at 900,000 votes fewer than had turned out at this point in the 2020 race. So maybe Democrats aren't as enthusiastic about Kamala as they had hoped their electorate.
Well, and 2020 is going to be your high watermark for the disparity between Democrats and Republicans with absentee by mail and early vote. So any little improvement by Republicans in all of these battleground states is going to make a massive difference on election day. And remember, 2020 was decided by 40,000 votes over 7 states. I mean, you're talking about slim margins.
Yeah, I mean, look, Megyn, it really is the difference between winning and losing here. I mean, what Duncan just said, 40,000 votes over 7 states. The difference between losing an election and an electoral landslide is less than 100,000 votes. It's less than 100,000 votes. And so if you think about sort of making a plan to vote, and Republicans, I think, are it seems like they're doing a good job of trying to emphasize that, but banking those votes early, getting them in, and then repressing, trying to figure out where the field of persuadable voters are, it saves the campaign an incredible amount of resources. But two, it just, the certainty involved is so much better. We don't have to deal with natural disasters or anything that could happen on election day that you can't get to the polls.
But that's such a good point. That's why people like Charlie want the voters, and because he's helping with this get out the vote effort, want voters in Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona to get out early, because once they know that they've banked that person's vote, they can move on to targeting people who might be fence sitting, who they've called on once or twice, but are low propensity voters who they got to put all their resources. Charlie Kirk's going to personally show up at your house and ask you to come vote for Donald Trump with him. But it does help them. Like, consider, it's not just like, oh, do it just in case. It's like, no, do it because it will help the people who are on the ground stumping for Trump, trying to get voters out there, know where to concentrate their efforts. That's a very good point. Can I ask you this? So how do you like the odds here? Less than 3 weeks to go. What's going to happen? What do you think?
I'd rather be Trump than Kamala. Obviously, a lot of this depends on what we just discussed. But if you look at where things have settled out, and over the last 10 days, you look at some trend lines in places like Michigan and Wisconsin in particular, Trump's got multiple pathways to win, provided he wins Georgia and North Carolina. If he wins Pennsylvania, this thing's over. It's done, right? But he doesn't need to win Pennsylvania. He could also win Wisconsin and Arizona, and it's 272. So, I mean, there's a bunch of different pathways for him. There are 0 pathways for her without Pennsylvania. She's got to have it. It is neck and neck. You heard the numbers from the early vote. I mean, I like to have options. If I'm a campaign at this stage, I like to have options, and it doesn't feel like she's got a lot.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Megyn, there is another number that really sticks out to me. It's the one that Brett quoted last night. 80% of the people in this country think that we're on the wrong track, and that is bad news for the party who's been in power for 12 of the last 16 years. They've made every single bad thing that's happened for us. And I think people just want change. And what Trump did, he led with authority. He was strong, and our economy was pretty good when he was in charge.
Yeah. And I said it on Ruthless on the last episode, but like outside of the polling obviously informs what we think is happening in a campaign. But the other thing that informs our opinion is what the campaigns are doing.
Yeah.
And Kamala Harris, going to Fox News, swinging wild, trying anything she can to squeeze out extra votes, tells you they're desperate, that they know that they're behind.
With no central messaging either.
Right.
Like today, Black Men Day.
Right. You would never take that risk knowing your candidate is Kamala Harris and put her on Fox News unless you knew it was desperation Hail Mary time.
Yeah, you should have a central thesis that you're pushing across the finish line totally at this point.
Yep.
Everybody should know exactly what it is that you're saying before you say it when you're within 20 days of an election.
Right.
Hers is every day is something new. And I think that is telling.
Yeah, like a brand new policy that she's unveiling for Black men only. It's like, what? Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. The app shows whether you're burning fat or carbs and provides tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, workouts, sleep, and stress management. You see, you breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and then based on your measurements, Lumen gives you a personalized nutrition plan for the day. You can also breathe into it before and after workouts and meals to get real-time insights. Your metabolism is your body's engine, how it turns food into fuel. Optimal metabolic health translates to numerous benefits, including easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, and better sleep. Lumen can also track your cycle, adjusting its recommendations to maintain a healthy metabolism through hormonal shifts. If you want to take the next step in improving your health, go to lumen.me/Megyn to get 15% off your Lumen. That's lumen.me/Megyn for 15% off your purchase. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.